Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel where we explore the most captivating stories from around the world. Today, we journey to the heart of Vietnam to uncover a tale that has echoed through generations, a story of skill, desperation, and the ultimate sacrifice. This is the legend of the blacksmith and the Great Temple Bell. Picture a small, bustling village nestled in ancient Vietnam. In this village lived a blacksmith, a man whose hands were as skilled as they were calloused. His reputation was known far and wide. He could shape iron into tools so fine they seemed almost magical. Yet, despite his incredible talent, poverty was a constant shadow in his life. Day in and day out, he toiled in the blistering heat of his forge, the rhythmic clang of his hammer, a familiar song in the village. He would melt raw iron, wrestling with the fiery liquid, and cast tools to sell at the local market. But no matter how hard he worked, his family's struggles remained. Life was a constant grind, a battle to put food on the table. One day, a royal decree arrived, shaking the quiet rhythm of the village. The king, a devout man, had ordered the casting of a magnificent great bell for the main temple. It was to be a bell so grand, its sound would carry prayers to the heavens and bring peace to the land. Royal messengers scoured the kingdom for the finest craftsmen, and soon word of our poor blacksmith's unparalleled skill reached the king's ears. He was summoned to the capital and bestowed with the highest honor and the heaviest burden of his life. He was to forge the great bell. The blacksmith returned to his village, his heart a mixture of pride and trepidation. This was his chance to prove his worth, to create a masterpiece that would be remembered for centuries. He threw himself into the task with a passion he had never felt before. He selected the finest metals, meticulously calculated the ratios, and built a furnace larger than any he had ever worked with. The entire village watched with bated breath as he began the casting process. The molten metal, glowing like the setting sun, was poured into the enormous mold. Days of anxious waiting followed. But when the mold was finally broken, a collective gasp of despair filled the air. A massive crack ran down the side of the bell. It was ruined. Undeterred, the blacksmith tried again. He believed it was a simple mistake, a flaw in his technique. He refined his process, adjusted the temperature, and performed the casting once more. He poured his sweat, his hopes, and every bit of his knowledge into the work. But again, fate was cruel. The second bell emerged from its mold just as flawed as the first. Another hairline fracture rendering it useless. The news reached the king, and his patience wore thin. He was not a man to be trifled with. A stern warning was sent. Succeed on the third attempt, or you will face the gravest of consequences. The threat of death now loomed over the blacksmith, as heavy and cold as the iron he worked with. Desperation gnawed at him. He had exhausted his knowledge, his strength, and his resources. He couldn't understand why his skill, which had never failed him before, was now abandoning him. In his darkest hour, with nowhere else to turn, he went to the very temple for which he was building the bell. He knelt before the altar, the scent of old incense filling his lungs, and prayed to the temple's guardian spirit. He pleaded for guidance, for a sign, for any answer that would save him from failure and the king's wrath. He prayed until exhaustion overtook him, and he fell into a deep, troubled sleep right there on the temple floor. That night, a strange and vivid dream came to him. He found himself in a void, surrounded by swirling mist. A voice ancient and resonant echoed around him, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The voice was calm, yet carried an undeniable authority. It spoke a single chilling sentence. To complete the bell, a soul must be woven into the metal. A human sacrifice is required. The words struck him like a physical blow. He awoke with a start, the cold temple floor beneath him, the morning light filtering through the windows. The dream felt terrifyingly real. He understood its horrifying implication. The bell demanded a life, and the only life he could offer was his own. A profound sadness settled over him, but also a strange sense of clarity. He saw it as his destiny. He was the master of the craft, and this was his final, most profound act of creation. The day of the third and final casting arrived. A somber crowd gathered, sensing the gravity of the moment. The blacksmith moved with a calm, deliberate grace, his face a mask of resolute purpose. He supervised the melting of the bronze, watching the metal churn and bubble, a liquid inferno. His assistants, unaware of his plan, prepared to pour it into the mold. As the molten river of metal began to flow, the blacksmith took a deep breath, looked one last time at the sky, and with a silent prayer on his lips, he leaped. He plunged into the heart of the fiery cauldron. The furnace roared with an otherworldly intensity, the flames leaping high into the air as if consuming his very soul. His assistants cried out in horror, but it was too late. The molten metal swirled and settled into the great mold, now infused with the life and spirit of its creator. This time, when the bell cooled and the mold was broken, it was perfect. It was flawless, gleaming under the sun, a true masterpiece. There was not a single crack, not a single imperfection. It was a monument born of fire and sacrifice. The great bell was carefully transported and hung in the highest tower of the temple. On the day of its inauguration, the king and the entire court were present. A monk struck the bell with a large wooden beam, and a sound unlike any other rolled across the land. It was not just a loud clang, it was a tone so deep, so rich, and so resonant that it seemed to touch the soul of every person who heard it. But within its powerful hum, there was a profound, lingering note of sorrow, a mournful echo that seemed to carry the voice of the blacksmith himself. It was as if his spirit was crying out from within the bronze, telling his story of dedication and sacrifice. From that day forward, whenever the bell tolled, its sound traveled for miles, a constant reminder of the man who gave his life for his craft and for his people. The blacksmith was no longer remembered just as a poor but skillful artisan. He became a legend, a symbol of ultimate devotion. His story teaches us that the most beautiful creations often require the deepest sacrifices, and that true mastery is not just about skill, but about the willingness to give a part of yourself to what you love. His soul lives on, forever encased in the beautiful, sorrowful song of the great temple bell. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into Vietnamese folklore. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more tales from around the world. We love hearing from you, so drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Until next time, stay curious.